How did you like piping the sugar scrub into these jars, Kale?
It
Ew. Hey guys, we are back with another video and we are rolling right along with the whole pumpkin themed products because we are deep into pumpkin season, and today's product is going to be a really exciting one because we are going to be making pumpkin beer sugar scrubs. Because you guys love seeing Kale so much, and also because he is the sugar scrub master in this team, he's going to be the one starring in today's video. And the ingredient that's going to make it a pumpkin beer is this beer powder that we're going to be adding to the scrub.
I'm starting to feel like I'm the only person that makes things around here.
No, it's you do make a lot of the product, and I have realized that we've not featured you on this channel enough, so you're back. And I know that our audience loves it, so if that is something that you want to keep watching, then keep watching. Let's go make these sugar scrubs.
Let's go.
So the first thing I'm going to do here is mix together our emulsifiers and butters. And the reason I'm doing these first is because they take longer to melt, so I just want to get them melting first before everything else.
And today's emulsifier that we're using is Wax, which is kind of a branding version of emulsifying wax. Even though its INCI name is emulsifying wax NF, it's the more reliable, in my opinion, emulsifier. It really helps to keep my lotions and sugar scrubs pretty stable, and this ingredient keeps the oils and butters connected to the water that we're also going to be using in this recipe to keep everything a nice and stable, fluffy consistency. And what Kale added first here is hemp seed oil, and it gets this beautiful deep green color from the fact that it's unrefined. And you can use any type of light oil for the sugar scrub. We love using hemp seed oil and everything, so that's usually going to be our go-to when it comes to a light oil. And what Kale is cutting up over here is our cocoa butter. And the cocoa butter we use is pretty light because it's refined and deodorized. Unrefined cocoa butter smells just like chocolate, so if that's something that you want your product to smell like, then yeah, definitely use unrefined cocoa butter. We actually do have unrefined cocoa butter, which I am planning on using for something.
And I put that into a body butter one time on accident.
Yeah,
but it ended up not being that bad.
Yeah.
It was not intentional. But
yeah, we had to work around it. I think we added some vanilla to it, so it was like a chocolate vanilla, or it could have been...
It was supposed to be vanilla coconut, and we made it like a chocolate vanilla coconut.
Yeah, and that turned out pretty good. So it's not exactly a bad thing, but just know when you're working with certain butters and oils, whether they're unrefined or refined, what that can do to the end product, because it definitely can make a difference. But we have found with unrefined hemp seed oil that the scent doesn't carry through to the final product, so that's why we like using it. And this cocoa butter adds a really nice touch to the sugar scrub. It makes it nice and conditioning.
So next thing we're going to add here is the stearic acid.
Yeah, so what stearic acid does in our formulation is help the wax. They work as kind of like a team together to keep the emulsion stable, because sometimes just wax, while it's a pretty good emulsifier, isn't enough. You need something else for a little bit of more stability, and that's what the stearic acid does.
So next I'm going to put in here is coconut oil. This is actually wax, that we've written on the side here. And one of the things that we like to do is just reuse buckets. So we go through a lot of buckets here, and these are good vessels to hold the raw ingredients.
Yeah, we like to keep as many buckets as we can. They really do make awesome ingredient holders, especially when we have a big bulk amount, which we do, of wax. If we want to have it on hand, and a convenient way to keep it on hand is to put it in these buckets.
And the last ingredient for this group is the Slsa. So for this, it's good to have a mask on. You'll start coughing almost automatically once you start kicking up those particles and they come out of the bag. So
yeah, a respirator is definitely a good idea. So if you don't have one of these guys, it's a great investment because this also keeps out live fumes really, really well.
So now that we have all of these ingredients in here, we're gonna put it into a water bath.
Kale is putting on his mask again because we are gonna be working with the next group of ingredients, and they are, sorry?
I'm snapping my neck down here with you.
And the next group of ingredients will include some surfactants, and surfactants are what add the foam to our foaming emulsified sugar scrub. And this big bag here is some SCI powder. We also have some cocamidopropylbutane, some glycerin, and some sodium lactate. So it's not just surfactants in this group. There's also some humectants, and humectants are what draw moisture to the skin. So not only is this sugar scrub foamy and cleansing, but it also has some properties in it that make it hydrating. And if you're working with SCI powder, it's definitely important to wear a respirator, because if that flies up and you breathe it in, it's very, very uncomfortable.
This is even worse than SLSA.
You think
If you
so?
breathe it in. Yeah, I think so. Like, I'm more easily triggered from the SCI than the SLSA.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's a very, very fine powder. I'm gonna reach over and show you just how fine that powder is, but it gets everywhere if you let it. So be careful when you work with SCI powder.
So hard to see from the moment we arrive. Cornelia, you are one who will survive. When time's been bad, you put smiles on everyone. Think of you and of all I should have done. It don't mean a thing what shape or form that you're in, the place you're from, the wealth or the color of your skin, and all you have burns to the sky.
So Kayla's just stirring up all of those ingredients right now, and it looks messy, but that's not just kale. It's because SCI powder gets everywhere. It literally just flies up in the air so easily. Even with me filming this, I should probably put a mask on, because it's, even stepping back, I'm about maybe 4 feet away. It's irritating me a little bit. So yeah, that's how volatile SCI powder is. And so what Kayla's doing is mixing it all together, and it's gonna look kind of like a soup. Like
yeah, there's still some chunkies in there, but once we melt these down, those chunkies will disappear, melt down into the liquid.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do with these guys is just like with the other group that we combined ingredients for, we're just gonna put it in a water bath and melt it down and just get everything warmed up. And then once the first group of ingredients melts down, then we're gonna combine that with that first group, and then we're gonna heat them together. So Kayla has both groups melting down in our stove, and you want to just talk about the process a little bit?
Yeah, so the group with the surfactants will be the first thing to kind of melt down and blend all together. Once all the chunks are gone out of that, I will combine that with the original group in the bigger vessel, and then mix all those together. And that, because that's already melted, that will kind of expedite the melting process for the whole thing. In the bigger bowl, those ones take a while to melt if they're by themselves. So if we combine them all, it kind of makes it all a little bit faster to become that consistency that we want.
Yeah, so how long does it take for our stove, the whole melting process in total?
Yeah, for the surfactants, it takes about an hour, and then after I mix the two together, it takes about another hour from there.
So every stove is different, but what we usually look for is just everything is melted down, has an even consistency, and that's when we're ready to move to the next step. So we'll see you guys once we reach that step and show you what that next step is.
All right, so we have taken the combined mixture now. About an hour ago, I combined the two vessels together to help it melt, and now we have kind of like a jelly-like substance here.
So what's the next step after?
So we're going to mix this all up here, and then we're going to stick blend it to where we see it kind of thicken up even more. And you can kind of see where the part that's blended is. See how it's a little bit thicker down there in the middle? But the blender blade is pretty small, so you just kind of move it around. Alright, and the next step we're going to do is just let this cool down to where it's below 145 degrees Fahrenheit so that we can add our preservative. All right, and for this next step, we're gonna be mixing our fragrance oils and our liquid Germal Plus.
That's the preservative that we're going to be using today. That's a big reason why we're waiting for the base to cool down, because we want the preservative to actually work. And if your mixture is too hot, then it just completely defeats the purpose, and it's not going to do what it's supposed to do. So with every type of preservative, make sure that you're reading the instructions and you know at what temperature you should be adding it to. And for liquid Germal Plus, I believe it's below 145 degrees Fahrenheit.
And the fragrance oil that we're going to be using today is going to be this pumpkin from Moe Rouge, Canada.
And we unboxed this, I think, in the last video, and we gave our thoughts on it, and we really like it because a lot of pumpkin scents that you get from soap supply companies have a very spicy tone to it. It's more like a pumpkin spice type of scent. If you're looking for a pumpkin fragrance oil that favors more of the pumpkin side of things, this is the fragrance oil for you. If you were to look at the notes, it's the top note of bourbon and pumpkin, a middle note of oak, maple, and caramel, and a base note of cinnamon. So there is a little bit of spice, but I definitely feel like it's in the background. And for sure, it's more of a pastry, bakery type of scent.
Yep.
More creamy.
Yeah, creamy. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Pumpkin cream. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that creaminess comes from the middle notes that are coming out more than the spice.
Yeah, the oak and the maple.
Yeah, the maple. Yep.
Yeah. And that's why we also thought this would be a great fragrance oil for today's project of pumpkin beer, because this does bring to mind an ale type of scent, I think.
Yeah. All right, and now we've taken some temperature readings here, and we're at the point where it's cooled off. All right, this is all blended correctly here with our fragrance oils and our preservative, and then we're just gonna put this into our mixing bowl. Make sure we get all the product in there, scrape all the sides, because that's still a lot of the mix stuck to the sides in there. All right, exciting times here. This is actually an ingredient we haven't used before in our sugar scrubs. This is beer powder. Beer powder adds an extra level of silkiness when applying to your skin, and it'll make the sugar scrub a little bit more foamy too. All right, and last but not least, but the bulk of our ingredients for this recipe for our sugar scrub is sugar. So now, the fun part, we're just gonna mix this up in the KitchenAid. After it's all mixed to the consistency we like, we're gonna split it up into two separate batches for the different colors.
So after a lot of mixing, this is the consistency that we've got. It's nice and thick. And once Kale splits it up into two batches, then we're going to, for the mix that's gonna remain in the KitchenAid bowl, we're going to color that with some orange and gold mica to get a nice warm orangey gold color. And then the other half, we're just gonna leave white. And then we'll show you how that looks once we mix those colors in. So what Kayla's gonna do now is he's gonna take that white sugar scrub and just make a line of sugar scrub down this length of parchment paper, because what we're gonna be doing is squeezing the sugar scrub into these jars so that we can get that glazed effect. And the reason why we use parchment paper, a lot of people were telling me that I should be using cling wrap for this, which if I do use it, it is quite effective, probably better to use that than this. But the reason why we use parchment paper is because we just don't have cling wrap in our house, so this is the next best thing. So what Kayla's done is he's made a line with the white, and he's going to make another line with the orange, and then we'll show you what that looks like once he does that. Right now he's just scraping the sugar scrub off of the beater there. So Kale is gonna squish it through, and it's gonna come out the other end. Yep, just keep squeezing it. Yep, it's okay. Yep, and it's just gonna come out in this dual color. Okay, just like that. And now that Kale squeezed a lot of that sugar scrub down the tip, he's going to fill this jar. He's gonna fill this jar by focusing on the sides.
Yeah, it feels good.
Yep, just keep going. And then the orange and the white together, I think, make a really interesting combination, especially for this pumpkin beer sugar scrub.
I'm gonna put a little bit more in there.
Yep. A little bit more. And there you go. And that's the technique that we're using right now. And I think it looks really cute. So here are the jarred sugar scrubs. What we're actually gonna do is add a little bit more magic to them by dusting them with some gold, and I'll show you what that looks like in a bit. So for the very top, I'm going to sprinkle some of this bronze mica. And this is just beautiful, sparkly, brownish, I guess bronze is the best way to put it. And then I have this Betty Crocker, this little Betty Crocker sifter. I'm just going to hold it over my sugar scrubs and then add a little bit of bronze so that it just gets on there pretty evenly and not just as one big clump. And let me have Kale actually show you a close-up of it. So I'm gonna hold the sifter above my sugar scrub, and I'm just gonna tap a little bit of the bronze mica over, and that evenly distributes the mica on top, and that looks really, really pretty over there. So let's show you again what that looks like for this guy. And it just adds the best sparkle for these pumpkin beer sugar scrubs. And as time goes by, this light orange mica will actually deepen even more, and it'll be more pronounced. Mica is weird like that, where it just darkens in my sugar scrubs overnight.
It's been so long, I know, but I'm finally coming home. Till then I'm dreaming of your heart, your eyes, our love. Darling, I can't wait till I see your face. Oh God, I miss.
So this is the final product, and oh my god, look how gorgeous this turned out. I love the orange and the white tones and how they swirl together using that piping bag technique, and you can see it on the sides here. It kind of looks like a frothy beer, doesn't it?
Beer film.
Yeah. And then the bronze topping, I think, is the perfect way to finish it off. And we added the label to one, and this is what the finished product looks like. And it just looks so chic. And I did mention that this orange color will deepen a little bit overnight. And yeah, how did you like piping the sugar scrub into these jars, Kale? We're laughing because there is a bit of a struggle. But with any new skill, it just takes practice. You just have to do it over and over again.
Yeah, I need lots of practice with this.
But I will say I love the effect that piping technique gives the jars. Do you? I feel like you can't really get that by scooping it in. How it's almost like an ombre effect. It looks so dreamy. How nice that looks. I'm so proud of how these turned out. And these have the beer powder in them too, so they're a little bit different from our usual sugar scrubs. And if you want the exact recipe for this sugar scrub, including the beer powder and all of the steps, we have that on our Patreon, which is linked in our description box below. And on that Patreon, we also have sneak peeks, and I show you and talk about a little bit more stuff that I don't talk about here on this channel. So if you want to check that out, it's linked down below. And speaking of my Patreon, thank you to anyone and everyone who chooses to support us on there, especially these guys, our Bubble BFFs, who are business owners themselves. Some of their businesses are linked in my description box below, so check them out if you want to see what other people are doing and what other beautiful things they're creating. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a huge thumbs up. And if you want to see more, please subscribe. And until the next one, keep smiling, keep being awesome, keep making beautiful, wonderful things like pumpkin beer sugar scrubs. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye.